Welcome to Militant Geek Preparedness and welcome to the Important Skill Sets video. So, before we get started, I've got a bit of a disclaimer here. Although I have an abundance of information that I can share with you, I severely lack good communication skills. So if you bear with me, you can actually learn quite a bit from me. I actually made a video on our news channel a little while back about the importance of being able to learn from people you don't like. So that is a valuable skill to be able to do in and of itself. So we're going to discuss several skills. However, I figured the best way to be able to do this is kind of to break out with one of my skill sets and show you the importance of it. Not only the importance of it after some type of a long-term major disaster, but also the importance of it in your everyday life. So I've got a bunch of stuff on the table here. It's not a big table. Believe me, before this video is done with, I'll have this table cleared off a few different times with more stuff up here. So because I think it's really important to drive this point home. This is essential. It is absolutely essential. I was given two pieces of advice when I was given a lot more than that, but two good pieces of advice in my younger years. When I was real young, and I'm going to guess around 14, 15 years old, I can remember my uncle telling me that he didn't care if I was a trash man. Just be the best damn trash man there was. And I had another important tidbit of info given. I think it was from my dad, but I could be mistaken on that. But I was told to be an asset. Like if you work for a company, be an asset to that company. Because that's job security, that will help you. It's supposed to help you move up in the ranks and all that stuff. Of course, that all necessarily isn't true by today's standards, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So, one of the important skill sets is going to be electrical and electronics. And it happens to be one of my bigger skill sets. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about that. First of all, I need to add to this that I just have this uncanny ability to learn things, and I always have my entire life. I have an understanding of physics that I don't even know why I have the understanding of physics that I do. I have no idea. The Father had blessed me, and I really didn't do anything to show him thanks for that blessing in my younger years, and I guess I'm trying to catch up for that now. So, as I said, one of my skill sets is electrical. And this started way back when I was young. We moved to Highland when I was 5 years old. And by the time we moved to Highland, so 5 years old or younger, I had already completed 2 electrical circuits. Now the first one, it's kind of funny. My dad used to cut the cords off of everything. I mean, if it was some type of little small appliance or whatever, it doesn't matter. He would cut the cord off of it. Why? Well, because he might need it someday. And so my dad always had stuff like that laying around. And so my first electrical circuit was me getting one of those cords that Dad cut off of something, stripping the ends of the wires on that cord, and tying those wires together, and then in just an absolute flash of brilliance, I decided, and well, more than that, I decided that it would be in my best interest at the moment to plug that into the outlet. You can imagine what happened. So it's pretty disastrous, right? But let me go to the flip side of that. Again, 5 years old or under, I can't remember if I was like 4 or 5. My parents had went to a yard sale. And they brought home this little ride-on motorcycle. Now, not the little tykes, but, the power wheels and stuff like that the kids ride around these days. I don't know what brand this was, but it was a little battery-powered motorcycle that you rode on, and it used a 6-volt lantern battery, one of the old-school 6-volt lantern batteries. Now, I cannot tell you how I knew to do this. I have no idea. My parents figured they would give me the little motorcycle, And, you know, those batteries weren't the cheapest thing in the world, so they thought nonetheless I could just scoot the thing around and I'd be happy, right? And normal kid, I guess they would probably be right, but I wasn't a normal kid. While my mom and dad were over at the neighbors, sitting in lawn chairs in the front yard, as neighbors used to do, I was inside finding Dad's flashlights. And so I had grabbed 2 of Dad's flashlights. I grabbed his roll of electrical tape. I grabbed a little bit of aluminum foil. This is no joke. And I taped the batteries together, you know, 2 and 2. I flipped the 2 polarities. I don't know how I knew how to do this. I guess maybe because of how you put batteries in toys or something. I guess maybe I learned that. I picked it up from that. But then I taped the foil on the bottom of the batteries. And I connected, of course, the top 2 contacts to the wires that you would normally slide into the little spring on the 6-volt lantern battery. And it worked. But I did have it wrong. I had it backwards. So whenever you hit the throttle, instead of going forward, it went backward. But I was smart enough to know somehow that had to be switched around. And I got it working. And I dragged the thing outside and sat down on it and took off. I can't tell you how I did that. I have no idea. I have a natural ability for certain things. A lot of things involving theory, involving physics, So the reason I'm telling you this is I need you to bear with me. Because there's a whole lot of things that to me seems like it's common sense, but in reality it's not even close. So please bear with me on that. That's why I gave the disclaimer in the beginning. So, told you about my childhood. When I was a little bit older, my parents, they didn't have a bunch of money. I don't want to say that we were destitute or nothing. We had clothes on our backs, shoes on our feet, food in our bellies, a roof over our head. But there wasn't a lot more left over after they took care of everything. And so my dad taught us that if we wanted to have things, we better learn to do for ourselves. You know, because if you don't make enough money to pay somebody else to do things for you that you don't know how to do, well, then you have to just go without. You either learn how to do it or go without. That's what he told us. And I chose to try to learn how to do things. So as a young boy, couldn't tell you the age, probably around 8, 10 years old, I'm not sure. Dad had a dryer that, I don't know how he came across this dryer, probably an auction, who knows. And it was a prototype commercial dryer. And the thing had 2 different heating element switches, or had 2 different heating elements in it, but it also had 2 different temperature switches in it. This particular dryer had both a high mode and a low mode. And so, at some point, the heating coil on the dryer for the high mode had broken. It had burnt into 2. And so, here I am, as a young boy, sitting on the floor in our utility room, watching Dad as he showed me how to take a bolt, a nut, and 2 washers and tie that heating element back together so that it would work. Why? Because he couldn't find parts for the dryer, because it was a prototype dryer. He couldn't just get a hold of Marconi or whoever and get the parts for it. So I've been around this for much of my life, doing your own repairs and stuff like that. Fast forward a little bit, 5th grade, Ms Monken. I'm sure that some people will remember her. And she got the class involved into something that I love, and that's rocketry. And so the class had all built model rockets, right? And I can remember Ms Monken telling us that depending on how much time we had and all that, we may not all be able to launch our rockets. And oh, hell no, that wasn't going to sit well with me. I wanted to launch my rocket, right? And I'm not the one to get picked first all the time, if you know what I'm saying. So I wanted to make sure I was going to be able to launch my rocket. So what did I do? And it was funny, by the way, because there were people that swore up and down I had help on this project. Not only I did not have help on the project, my parents didn't even know I was doing it. And in fact, they weren't very amused when they found out that I did. And the reason why is because for the housing of the launch controller, I used a Tupperware bowl container that my mom had. And I went out in the garage and found a pull chain switch that my dad had stuffed away in the garage somewhere. And I literally built my own launch controller. I took a small piece of plywood, I drilled a hole in it. I think I used I used a coat hanger, right? I straightened out a coat hanger to be able to use for the launch rod. And I think I used the top out of a coffee can. After it was cut open, I think that's what I used for a blast deflector on it. That detail I'm not 100% sure on anymore. However, I even made it on the front page of the Highland News Leader because I had built my own launch apparatus to be able to launch my rocket, right? So, you know, I've been doing this stuff for quite a while. If we fast forward a little bit more, and believe me, we're going to get into this stuff soon, and I can start kind of showing you and removing stuff off of this table here. Fast forward a little bit, let's go back, you know, say, I don't know, 6 years or what have you. 2017. So, 2017, I built 2 electric bicycles. And I will show you those bicycles in a picture. And also, I forgot to mention it earlier, when I was young, 4th, 5th grade, something like that, my parents had gotten me, I had 2 or 3 little electronic experiment kits. And I'll flash pictures up of the 2 kits that I know I had. But I want to say that I had a 3rd kit too, but I'm not super positive which kit that was. So again, this electrical is something that I have done literally since 5 years old. I mean, I know it's insane, right? So I built bikes in 2017. I'll flash a picture of my bike up so you can see it. My bike was the second one I built. The first bike I built was for Jen, and it's a 26-inch adult trike. She doesn't, because of her cerebral palsy, she doesn't have the range of motion in her legs to be able to pedal. And so I still wanted her to be able to have a bike that she could cruise around. And so I bought a electric front wheel hub kit right off of eBay. And so I put that on her bike, and what I did with her pedals is I had locked the chain down. So the chain is bound up so the pedals can't turn. And then she has a squared tapered type of arms on her arm, pedal arms or whatever you call those, the crank arms. She has a square tapered type. And so I was able to take the bolt out, swing around the crank arm 180 degrees so they both pointed the same direction, put the bolt back in, and now she can use them as a step and foot pegs to be able to get up on the bike and somewhere to put her feet when she's riding the bike. So that was her bike. And I don't know that I've got any good pictures of that. If I do, I'll throw it up as well. So her bike just used 4 lead acid batteries. They were just 20 amp hour, 12 volt batteries, about the size of a motorcycle battery. And this is the battery that I use. Now, this probably looks a little ratty to you, but again, I did this in 2017, so that's what, 8 years? I would say for 8 years it's not doing too awful bad. I do need to replace my black duct tape that's around for trim, around the edges for the trim. That's not structural, it doesn't hold them together, it's just for looks. And, you know, I don't have a bunch of money, and I still want things, and so as Dad taught us, learn to do for yourself. And so I thought, you know what, I can build a battery pack, I know I can. And so someone had helped me out. He gave me a bunch of used discarded laptop batteries. Okay, I had a box full of them. By the way, if there's any computer shops here local and you got some used discarded batteries to give away, or just laying there you don't want, you can get a hold of me. I will be more than happy to take them off your hands. What is inside those laptop batteries are these. These are 18650 cells. Okay, and the 18650 is in reference to the size of it. Okay, so it's 18 millimeters across and 600 or is it 65 or is it 650? I think it's 65 long, and I can't remember what the 0 is, not off the top of my head, but that is the measurements of the battery. So nonetheless, inside of here there are 117 of those types of batteries, along with a battery management board. They actually call it a BMS. And that BMS it's a 48 volt battery that outputs 48 volts. And it can push up to 45 amps. The BMS I put in it's good for 45 amps. And as a rough guesstimate of the capacity of it, I guesstimate that it's somewhere around, it should be somewhere around 20 amp hours. So that was what I was shooting for, and I was kind of undercrediting the used batteries as far as their capacity that was left. So in other words, I used more batteries than I thought I would actually need to make sure that I hit that 20 amp hours. So it's actually, for those that do know a little bit about electronics, it's actually it's 13S9. So there's 13 cells in a series, and that gets me up to the 48 volts. And then there's 9 of those 13 cell packs in here. So anyway, again, to buy a comparable battery, well, back when I built this, they were about $600 to buy a comparable battery. I don't know, I think I might have paid 30 to 40 bucks for that BMS board. And again, I scavenged all the batteries out of used discarded laptop batteries, so the batteries themselves cost me nothing. And let me get this off of here. I just thought it was important to kind of show you that. Okay, and then sticking along, because we're going to talk about electrical just for a moment, because this is the deal. One thing that's important to do is not stop at a single skill set. Okay, when you learn a skill set, it's, in my opinion, a smart idea to learn other complementary skill sets that can all work together to create systems. Okay, and so that's largely what I've done. We talked about doing the bike. This here is a solar panel. I've got a few different kinds. I know I've already showed you my all powers 28 watt. This here, and I'm not going to be able to pull it all out. I mean, I will, but you won't be able to see it. There's 4 panels like this on this, and this is a 60 watt solar panel. Okay, little portable solar panel. However, this is too big and heavy to be trying to carry around in a bug out bag. That's why I have my 28 watt in my bug out bag. But what I want to show you, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to show you the capabilities I have just with this. I can just grab this and have all kinds of capability involving power. This right here is a USB powered battery charger. And this thing will charge everything from 18650s to your rechargeable double and triple A's, right? It'll charge a ton of different types of batteries. They even charge, well, I guess your AA and AAA, I guess they are probably NiCad, I think. I don't know if they ever changed that technology or not, to be quite honest. But, so I've got the ability to plug this in to that and be able to charge my batteries. I know, big whoop, big whoop. Oh, just wait until you see this. In here, again, I love my Ziploc bag. I've got all kinds of different connectors. that I can use with this solar panel. But one thing that I have in here is another battery charger. And this ain't no 18650 battery charger. This is actually a 5 amp 12 volt battery charger to be able to charge the battery on your vehicle. I can't tell you the amount of times that I have used this solar panel and this little bitty charger to charge somebody's battery up so they could start their vehicle. Even a Harley Davidson. I even use this to, howdy Brandon, I even use this to charge the battery on a Harley Davidson so he could get it started. So it's important to have these skills because, again, when you can do for yourself, you don't have to pay somebody else to do it. And if you can't afford to pay somebody else to do it, well, guess what? You're just out of luck. You know what I mean? So that's why skill sets are important today. Today, no less when you're in a dire strait. Whether that SHTF be some long-term major event that we all suffer together, or whether it's just job loss or something like that, and you have to do more yourself because, of course, the money not being there. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this box. I'm just going to show you. This is just a box of various electronics, right? My lights on my bike go blinky blinky, and some of them. This is the module that causes those to go blinky blinky. If you watch our news show, not every night, but a lot of nights I have the lights on my monitors on, and I've got a couple of revolving orange lights. But then I've got flashing red lights. Well, those are actually flashing white lights with a little vinyl put over them. So now they're red lights because of the vinyl. And I've got one of these modules connected up to a USB charger in order to power those lights and do the blinking. So USB ports, right? It really sucks to have a broken USB port, you know? And so right here, I've got I believe they're all A's, yeah. They're all USB A. However, I've got multiple different types of USB ports, type A ports, that I can be able to replace USB ports on circuit boards and whatnot. The reason I bought the kit was because I needed to do that. I had a couple of USB ports that I needed to replace, so I got that. I just got various. This is actually from the bike. I've got 3 more totes, just like this tote, that's filled with various electronics in it. This is a motor controller, 48 volt motor controller, 1000 watt. This one is smoked, but it's my old one, and I had to replace it with another one because this one smoked. But even that, I didn't have instructions. There were no instructions with that generic motor controller. I had to pull it apart and look at the board to be able to get an idea of what wires had to go where, right? Because if you get it wrong, you're going to smoke another. So again, these skill sets are highly important. I always had this interest in electronics. I've only worked in the field one time, not real long outside of high school. I worked for a company for a short time here in town that was called Devtron. It's no longer here. It's where the Mosaic Church is now. And I knew enough about electronics, and I was good enough at soldering that fresh out of high school, without any further education, they put me in the test and repair lab at Devtron Electronics. So again, this stuff to me is easy, and it's always been easy. Probably the most frustrating thing for my mother is that I had this unbelievable amount of skill and a really uncanny ability to learn, and I just didn't do much of anything. I mean, I did do a lot with it, but not as far as a career is concerned. So this here is a solar charge controller. Let me set that off to the side because that's actually part of the next part of the discussion. If you look at this right here, I don't know why that thing started getting goofy on me. This is a power bank. This power bank, and I'll put it up on the screen, It cost me, I believe after taxes and everything, $1,077. Okay? That's a chunk of change. And let me tell you what, it's not very big. It's not. The reason I bought this is because this is just big enough to be able to plug our refrigerator in once every 4 hours if we had to be able to cool it down so that the things in the refrigerator would stay cool enough or frozen enough to remain good. Okay? It wouldn't be enough just to plug the refrigerator in and let it go hog wild for an entire day. Not quite enough to do that. However, you can most certainly unplug your refrigerator for a little bit and then plug it back in a little bit later and be able to at least keep things cool enough not to go bad on you. Okay, this is the OG Delta 1300. This one has nothing that connects to the internet or anything like that. It doesn't have all the app features and all that because I didn't want that. I don't, need my power bank to be able to contact ET, right? I don't need to be able to do that. Nor do I have to feel special because I can control my device with an app. People sometimes are their own worst enemy, you know? Oh, yeah, there we go again. I did tell you about my poor communication skills, right? Well, it's a thing. Here is another power bank. That one, the big one I just showed you, it actually normally lives in the very box that it was shipped in, right? So it normally lives in there because I'm really OCD about stuff. And as I go through this video, you're gonna notice that a little bit. This is a smaller power bank here. All right, and I can't remember off top hand what I paid for this. This is called the River 600. It's not the River Pro. To turn it into a River Pro, they had an extra battery that you could buy and put on the bottom of it, and it just increased your capacity a little bit. But I'm going to be real honest here. Them, EcoFlow, and their extra batteries, yeah, they have a lot of problems. And if you're looking for a power bank, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be brutally honest, don't go with EcoFlow. Folks here in town may have seen me when I was beta testing a robotic lawnmower. That lawnmower was from EcoFlow. And a number of the testers felt like the thing was nowhere near ready to be released when they intended to release it. However, not only did they ignore what we were saying, they actually stopped communicating with us in the little private group we had and started communicating one-on-one through direct messages. And I think they were doing that to cut down on what the different beta testers knew. They didn't want the beta testers knowing all the other problems that everybody else was having. You know what I mean? This damn thing, it was running out in the street and all of that. Now, this is supposed to be a device that you can just leave unattended, and it would mow your yard for you and go back to its little dock home and charge up when you were done. And the thing just from A to Z had charging problems, had GPS connection problems. It just was a piece of junk. And as a result of how they handled all of that, I will no longer support or recommend EcoFlow products. I won't. There are other companies out there. Anker, I'm sure, makes a good power box. They call them solar generators, and I'm sorry, I just have a really hard time with that because it doesn't generate. I mean, yeah, it inverts power so you can have AC, right? But it's not a generator. It doesn't generate the sun. It's not a solar generator. It takes solar panels to generate the power to charge these. So I know, I'm splitting hairs and all that. I just really hate the term solar generator. I really do. It just rubs me wrong because it's not correct. So and then in here, in the top of my little case, this was the last thing I got. I had some EcoFlow credits stored up, and I had enough to get a little case for this, so I did so. And you know, it's got the various connections to be able to charge it with. You've got your MC4 connectors for your solar panels. And, you know, you can charge it with a 12-volt accessory plug in a car, but I highly don't recommend it. And then I made my own. I think this one here is 10-foot extension cable for the solar panels. I made my own, put the MC4 connectors on it. And then it's got just various other stuff. But then I put stuff in there too. You know, there's a micro USB cable. And I'm not going to pull them all out. I have a power plug. I've got a, you know, USB-C cable. I've got all the cables. I've even got the barrel jack cables. No, I don't remember the numbers offhand. Was it 5150 or something? I don't know. But, and then I've got some splitters, some Ys. This is so that I can plug 2 solar panels in to one cord and be able to utilize 2 solar panels to charge this instead of just one. And I have the same kind of stuff for the bigger box, except those splitters I have are actually for 4 solar panels, because I've got 4 rigid glass 100-watt panels that I use to charge that larger box. So, and then in here, and I know you probably can't see down in there or whatever, you certainly probably don't know what it is. You might be asking yourself, why in the hell do you have an old antique looking Netgear router inside of your power bank box? Well, this router may or may not, I have to say may or may not, been modified to have a higher RF output. What does that mean? The wireless on this can go, may or may not, can go considerable distance among, you know, against a regular typical router. And I mean a considerable distance, okay? So, to give you an idea, I could actually take this up and put it, say, on top of that bank building that's by the old Super Value store at Claus Furniture, I guess is there or whatnot, Dollar Tree. That big bank, I've always called it Highlands Only Skyscraper. I could go put this up there with this box and that 60-watt solar panel I told you. And there is actually a fair bit of town that this will be able to reach. So if we were in some type of a long-term grid down event to where we had no power, we had no internet, I could actually create the town, well, not all of it, but at least some of it, what they would call an intranet. It would be our own little bitty network that we could use. And some other skill sets that I have. I was telling you about how complementary skill sets is, you know, when you see me doing this stuff, I do all my own image work. I do all my own video work. And even the website, I do all my own website work. I've been coding websites, well, started out hand coding in HTML websites a little over 30 years ago, using a free Angel Fire account online, right? And so the reason I'm telling you this is because, again, if we would be in some type of major grid down event that was not going to be fixed anytime soon, I actually have the skills not only to put a network up that we could all use, but I could also build a website and give anybody that was wanting to be in the network, I could give them a little bitty executive file. Well, it'd actually be a BAT file that you could put on your computer and run that BAT file. And what it would do is it would modify something called the host file on your Windows computer. Sorry, Mac. And what that would do is whatever I set that to, I could say militantgeekpreparedness.com, right? And your host file is something that you can use to redirect URLs. And so that's exactly what I would do. So the server computer IP would have a redirect, and we'll use militantgeekpreparedness.com as an example. I could use that BAT file to add that entry to your host file. It's just a file. All you would have to do is right-click it and click Run as Administrator. That's all you'd have to do. And it would put the entry in the file for you and all that. And then you just bring open your browser and go to militantgeekpreparedness.com. And even if the big www didn't exist, because you were on the same network And because you had that modified host file, now we have a website in which we can use to communicate, we can use to file share, share video, what have you, okay? So again, these skills are complementary, and that is important. That is important. That's why I have a wireless router in my power bank box. A lot of people probably wonder, you know, that's kind of silly. Not really so much. It's not silly. There's a use for it. However, as I was stating earlier, and we're getting close to the end of the electrical / electronic important skill set. I'm not going to go through all this and all the skill sets, so don't worry, I'm not going to completely bore the hell out of you with different skill sets. I wanted to kind of dive in deep to this one, however, because I wanted to show you the importance of these skill sets and how you can learn those complementary skill sets that you can, as I said earlier, use in systems to create full systems to be able to help you get by. And in here, as I was telling you earlier, those power banks are expensive. The big one was $1,077, like I said, I think out the door after I paid tax and all that. The smaller one, I think was advertised for $299, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, they're not cheap. And I've got two things I'm going to show you. I actually forgot one, so you'll have to give me a moment while I grab it. And it might be a little dusty because it lives underneath my computer. So, in here is various electronic crap that I have. I even got a USB cable with a hub that can be used, and another long USB cable. That's actually to power this board. And there's a hub there, so I can split that out to, is it 5 or what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 different USB ports. So I just keep that in there. Yeah, no kidding. The stupid little solar lights that you'd put around your walkway or your landscaping or whatever. Those are incredibly handy, especially if your power grid is down. Oh, and then here's some extra wire that I've got. I got cables in there. I got a charger in there. This here is a power bank, but it's also an 18650 charger. So you can put 4 of those 18650s in here. And you can use this either as, you know, a USB power source, or you can charge the 18650s using the micro USB port there. So that's a cool little thing to have. However, these are very cheaply made. I bought a ton of them, and there's only a couple that have survived. I do not put a lot of trust in them. I have a bunch of 18650 batteries, like I showed you earlier, right? And I've got a lot more, just not in this box. And then, here's the thing, right? This is a solar charge controller. When I bought this one, it's not anything super special. It's an El Cheapo. I think I paid around $30 for it, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a 30 amp solar charge controller. And so this is what you need after you input your output from your solar panels into here. This is what regulates your voltage and whatnot going into your batteries for charging. And it also, you know, controls turning on and turning off the charge so you don't overcharge your batteries or anything like that. Solar charge controller. And like I said, I paid, I think it was around 30 bucks for this back when I bought it. I am one of those preppers, if you will, that I don't have a lot of money. And so when me and Jen started out, I had just come out of a horrid marriage that I lost everything. I lost my possessions. I lost my kids. I haven't seen them in 11 years. And I didn't have nothing. And I was very preparedness minded. And so what I did is I went around each area of preparedness and I just bought what I could when I could, right? So I started out with a bunch of cheap stuff, and then as time went on and I was able to make more money, I would start replacing the cheap stuff with better stuff, okay? So this here is my first solar system setup to be able to have AC power if I would need to. This is the inverter. that I had. Now it says 2,000 watt. This thing's a cheap converter. I think I paid around like 43 bucks for it or something on eBay when I bought this. It says 2,000 watts. I really wouldn't hold it to that. 2,000 watts, for example, should be plenty to be able to power a refrigerator. You wouldn't catch me trying to power a refrigerator with this. I don't trust that it can do it. It's just a really cheap, inexpensive power inverter. However, if we would have had a grid down situation, let's say I didn't have batteries. I did, but let's say I didn't have batteries. It's not going to be super hard to come up with a couple of functional 12-volt batteries. Whether that be from a mobility scooter, or whether it be from cars, what have you, it's not going to be impossible to come up with a couple of 12-volt batteries, right? And so the idea was that regardless how I had to come across the batteries, I would have the method, and I had some solar at the time. I had a way to control the power going into the batteries so I didn't ruin the batteries, and then a way to convert that 12-volt DC power to 120 volts VAC power to be able to run regular household type of stuff. And I've got one more thing to show you. And this is, again, why I think it's really imperative that people understand how to do things, and how to do things for themselves, and most importantly, how to be able to modify, adapt, and overcome. And right here, and this was also given to me as well, is a UPS, otherwise known as an uninterruptible power supply. This is what people hook up to computers so that if they're using their computer and the power goes out, the computer stays running at least long enough for them to be able to save their work. Now, you can find these on Marketplace. Sometimes there's good deals on them. A lot of times there's not. But if you keep your eye out, there's a lot of people that will throw these away because the batteries, it's got two kind of cheap batteries on the inside of here. When the batteries go bad, a lot of people, instead of replacing the batteries for a little bit amount of money, they pay a lot more money and buy a whole new unit. And they'll just throw away their old UPS system. Also, again, considering that it's a long-term grid down event, right, some major disaster or whatnot, there's a lot of offices that use UPS systems for that very same reason, so that when their employees are doing work, if the power goes out, they don't lose that. So, again, this is a cheap way to be able to have a power inverter, especially if you know somebody is throwing one away. And you notice on the side of it, I got cables coming out with what they call an Anderson connector. And these systems, a lot of them run on 24 volts. Okay, so that means you'd have to have two 12-volt batteries hooked in series in order to have your 24 volts. That solar charge controller I showed you, you can use either on 24-volt systems or you can use on 12-volt systems. So it would work perfectly in line with this. And the batteries are still in it, that was in it when I got it. They're bad, they don't do anything. And I use external batteries. Those lead acid batteries, I got to get more. I don't have batteries for this right now. Told you that Jen's bike used 20 amp hour 12 volt lead acid batteries. Yeah, that's what I used on this. I actually did an interview for the Watchman News with a lady that owns a prepping channel. Rogue Preparedness is her name, or her channel name. And I actually did an interview with her. There was a nasty thunderstorm moved in. Tornado sirens, it's all on the interview. You can hear the tornado sirens going off in the background and all that. And our power went out. And I'm sitting here still doing a live broadcast with Rogue Preparedness using this. So it's very handy to know this stuff. These skill sets are very important. And we're going to move on to another skill set. I'm only going to cover a few skill sets, and believe me, the others aren't going to be nearly in depth as what I covered with the electrical. So the next skill set I'm going to talk to you about is sewing. Yup, that's right. I said sewing. I'm not embarrassed to admit this is my personal Project Runway limited edition sewing machine. So it is what it is, folks. People are going to have to repair clothing in some type of a major long-term event to where new clothes aren't available. This is going to be the only option you have to repair what it is that you got. So I initially had bought this because our black lab identified as an ox, and she kept ripping the stitches in her harnesses. And so I bought one harness, she ripped the stitches in it, and then I bought a second harness, she ripped the stitches in that. That was a more expensive harness. And so I thought, this is going to get real stupid real quick. So what I did was I bought a sewing machine, and I repaired her harnesses, both of them. So both harnesses to this day, they work great. I think the one she mainly uses, I do think that I had to restitch one other time. And but initially that's what I bought this for. But when I bought it, I already had intentions of getting one, just not that quickly. So is this a good choice? It works. Okay, I'm not really good at sewing, but this does the job. It does the job perfect. I've actually hemmed jeans, and this machine will actually drive through a double hem on a pair of jeans. So I was highly impressed by that. It seems to be a fairly good quality machine. It doesn't run on a ton of power, so my power banks have no problem being able to run this. So seemed like a pretty good unit to me. It served me well so far, and I probably actually need to pull it out and work on my sewing skills a little bit more, to be quite honest with you. But this is what I've got for that. Sewing is going to be huge after a major long-term event. And let me pop this off. I've also got, and I need to add to this, but this is a little bitty backpack thing that I have. And so I've got various things. I've got straight pins there. I've got iron-on patches there. And yes, my power banks are plenty big enough to run the iron that I have. So that is not an issue. I also have a t-shirt press that the larger power box won't have a problem running. And I just keep, and I need to get better thread, admittingly. I've got a ton of bobbins there. And then, I've got thread there. And admittingly, I do need to get better thread, because that's really, really cheap thread that's kind of really thin and it breaks easy. But my little backpack that I keep all of my different threads and stuff in, like I said, the extra bobbins and all that. Make sure that you get all that stuff, that you get needles, that you get bobbins, that you get everything that you may need to replace on your sewing machine, because that is highly important, as well as any old jeans, any old shirts, or anything like that that you don't wear. You might want to hang on to some of it, because this is patch material. Absolutely good patch material. I will go on and say further that it would also be a good idea to have on hand some heavier sewing tools, like tools that are more or less like sewing leather or sewing canvas or something like that. And the reason why I say that is because, again, if we're in some type of major long-term event to where there are no stores to go get stuff, eventually your shoes are going to fall apart. And eventually you're not going to be able to keep your shoes together. However, you could take some material that you have, and it may sound funny, but it's absolutely feasible. You could actually take and cut out the tire tread on old tires and use them for soles for the shoes, and along with thread and good heavy duty needles and thread, you can actually make yourself a pair of shoes. Again, it's not going to be a pair of Nikes, and it's not going to be something that's going to be all that aesthetic. However, it will protect your feet. It's about survival, right? Survival isn't going to be just luxurious, you know what I mean? And this here, I'm actually going to do a quick little separate video on this here soon. I don't know how many people that I've asked whether or not they have one in their bug out bag, that have said no and they never even thought of it. This is just a little bitty sewing kit that I have used from time to time that that I keep in my bug out bag. So if my bag gets a rip in it, or if my clothes gets a rip in it, or anything else, I've got this in my bug out bag. It's got everything I need. It's got plenty of needles. It's got plenty of different threads. And I've got a little small pair of scissors in there, seam ripper if I need to, what have you. Just a little bitty, this is just a little cheap kit off of Amazon. Nothing special, nothing expensive or anything like that. Sewing is going to be a really sought after skill during a long-term event. Because again, we won't be able to just go out and replace our clothes when they get holes in them or they get worn. We're going to have to fix them. Just like if you do come a pair, say you get a pair of pants that are too big. You know, you can cinch up the waist. You can do a lot with sewing things that you already have. So sewing is going to be huge. It is going to be absolutely huge. And it's something that you don't want to forget and, you know, not be prepared for. So that's sewing. And next up, we're going to talk about medical. Okay, medical. This is a field, a skill that I am not super well versed in myself. I know basic first aid, CPR, things like how to apply a tourniquet, how to pack a wound. I could even deal with a sucking chest wound. But medical is just not a field that I'm super well versed in, but it is an extremely important skill set after a major disaster, and that's a given, right? So here I've got my little IFAK, if you will. It's not complete. With all of my preps, I do what I can when I can. And so I have gotten a lot that I ideally want to add to my medical supplies because, well, you can never have enough medical supplies. So I do want to show you something real quick. A couple of things. Number one, your tourniquet. Your tourniquet you want to be able to get to just in a moment. I mean, this entire kit, we have a rack in our kitchen where we have a bunch of our preparedness supplies, and on that rack is like a Velcro attachment, if you will, and you know, it's set up to be able to connect to Molly and other places, or other ways I should say. However, it's got this Velcro back here, and so I can just grab this and yank it right off of that rack. So, for instance, if there was a car accident out front, I literally within seconds can be out the door with a basic first aid kit. So I'd say maybe a little more than a basic first aid kit, but you want your tourniquet, you want that real super easy to access, because if somebody is bleeding out, you do not have a lot of time. There's two things you want to be able to get to quickly. First, your tourniquet. That's imperative that you get to that quick, and I'm going to show you how to get your tourniquet ready here in a second. And the other thing that you want quick, easy access to is your trauma shears. Because if somebody's bleeding, you want to be able to get to that bleeding as quickly as possible. So you may have to cut through some clothing, or you may even have to cut somebody's seatbelt to get them out of a vehicle. So it's really important to have your shears in a easy to get to place. So real quick, this is just basic. It's by no means even close to being done. Here I've got antiseptic towelettes, several of them, along with a 5x9 gauze pad, ABD pad, and as you can see, I've got several of those staged in here. Easy to access, quick to get, and you know, then I've got some of your standard gauze in multiple sizes, and then of course your stretch bandages, elastic bandages, because you can use these in order to hold the gauze in place. So again, it's not my strong point, but I do know a little bit about it. You know, your typical boo-boo stuff here. And then this is, these are towelettes. You may have seen them, maybe not. They're little towelettes, and they may look like a little mint or something, but you apply a little moisture to those, and they expand out to a full towelette. So, in a pinch, you could use those for extra gauze per se. In a pinch, it's not ideal. I don't highly recommend it. Make sure you've got gauze, but if you run through all of your gauze, there's another option. So gloves, you might wonder, that's kind of funny. May not have known those were gloves. These are absolutely gloves. There's one pair of gloves in here, two gloves in here. Why do I have them like this? Because number one, I've learned from Bear Independent, which by the way is a great resource for information. Not so much, I think he's running some scams, to be honest. So I don't trust him in that aspect. And I also keep in mind that he does sell medical goods. So you kind of have to view him like a used car salesman, because he will mislead people on things just because he would rather have the sales, right? So gloves. And why are they in a little bitty plastic package? The reason why, as you can tell, I've got several sets of gloves here. As Bear will tell you, if it's wet and not yours, don't touch it. So I may not be the only one assisting patients, right? So I can simply grab this pack and I can throw it, and I can throw this a considerable distance with it packaged up like that, so that if somebody needs a pair of gloves, all I gotta do is grab them out of my little bag here and literally just toss it to them, and they've got a pair of gloves that they can put on. So, and triangle bandage here. I've got some stop bleed here. And then, this is important, I've got a Write in the Rain notepad here. And I don't have a Write in the Rain pen in here. Again, that's something I need to add. Just don't have the funds to do that. When I get to it, I get to it. If I don't get to it, well, it is what it is. So, but I do have a ballpoint pen and a Sharpie in there. Another thing that I need to add into here is a grease pencil. Because, you know, if you're triaging patients, you're taking care of patients, you may need to write something on them. So, again, learn from Bear. You may need to write down something on their forehead so that other individuals that are there assisting victims or patients as well kind of know what's going on with that individual. So let me zip this back up real quick, and let me show you about this tourniquet. This is important, so I want to take a moment to show you this. So first of all, this is not a North American Rescue Cat 7 tourniquet. It's not. It's Cat 7, but it's not from North American Rescue. Bear will tell you that if it's a cheap Chinese tourniquet, it's gonna break. Bear is absolutely full of ish, okay? What you want to do when you buy a tourniquet, you want to pay attention to the spindle. And you want to make sure that it's a good meaty spindle. Because you're going to have likely, and same with your buckle, you want your buckle to be a good meaty buckle. Okay, the two things you have to worry about most with the knockoff Cat 7 or Cat Gen 7 tourniquets are going to be your spindle and your buckle. So you want to make sure that your buckle is a good thick buckle, and you want to make sure that your spindle is a good thick spindle, because they do sell cheap ones on Amazon and other places from China that are not suitable. Absolutely not suitable. So let's show you how to stage this real quick, okay? Because this is of ultimate importance. So when you get your tourniquet, what you want to do, and unfortunately I'm limited on room here, so I'm going to do my best to show you, is you want to pull it all the way out, just like this, okay? And you want to stretch it, because there's a band in here that you want to make sure is fully stretched out, okay? And then once you've done that, you want to stick the end of the Velcro here back through the buckle. And then what you want to do, and I've got it, mine's been folded up because it's been staged for so long. You want to take the end of it, right? Even though there's a little red tab there, you want to take the end of it and you want to fold it over about that much. You can do a little less if you like. I'll show you why that's important in just a second. And then what you want to do is you want to pull out, roughly about that much. And you want to go ahead and cinch it down like that. Then what you want to do, you want to come where your buckle is on the bottom here, and you want to fold up from the bottom of your buckle, and then flip it around, and then you just fold down on the top. So you see, the last thing you want to do is take your time tab here, and you want to adjust it at about a 45-degree angle, and you want to make sure that there's something above the top of this clip here. And the reason why is because you can grab it very easily. Okay, same thing with this. If you just got this little tab to grab a hold of, which by the way has Velcro on it too, you might be sitting there fighting with that tab. You do not have time. If somebody's bleeding out, you do not have time. And so what you do, like I say, is you just fold a little bit of over, so that way you only need gross motor skills to grab that tab instead of fine motor skills, and that makes a huge difference. So again, you want to pull out about that much after you got it folded over, and you just want, it's going to be the rough side, not the soft side. Oops. Wherever the soft side is, you want the rough sides. Put them together and make sure you keep this buckle straight. Don't fold this buckle up underneath. And you just want to go all the way up to the top and then fold back down like that. Move your time tab 45-degree angle once again to where you can use fine motor or gross motor skills to grab that tab, so you can secure the spindle in place instead of having to use or trying to use fine motor skills when you're dealing with a mass event of some kind, right? So the reason for this is because, let's say the patient is you. Okay, you need to be able to get that tourniquet on you very quickly. And so all you have to do with it staged like this is that. You see that? It's all open. It's ready to apply. Now, with a tourniquet, you want to apply a tourniquet if they're bleeding, arms bleeding, high and tight. Okay, high and tight. That's the rule. However, I'm going to show you where I can show you, which is going to be on my lower arm here. The reason you went through doing all of that is because, once again, you can quickly deploy it like that, put it around the limb, and then you've got that big tab you can grab a hold of, and again, it's my arm, so and so you can pull it real quick, right? And then of course you tighten up your tourniquet, and right until there's about to scream because it hurts, because it will hurt, and you go ahead and lock it in place. Pull your time tab over, you know the drill. The rest is pretty simple. So, but it's important to stage that tourniquet correctly, because if you don't, you're going to spend a lot of time that you don't have trying to get that tourniquet on the patient. So, go ahead and get this restaged so I can put that back on my kit. I keep it right at the top of my kit there, so I can just grab it. It's no time at all. I can just grab it. It's ready and accessible. This is my larger kit. This, I think they call it an M17 bag or something like that. And it's got various stuff in there. And like I say, I am not well skilled in medical, but that does not mean that I don't keep the supplies around for those that would be more skilled. So, and there's various things in here. There's big trauma dressings in here, 12-inch by 30-inch, for some mass bleeding. Let's see. Here's your regular size 1-inch by 3-inch bandages for the boo-boos. And of course, some instant ice compresses, ice packs. Some more of the big pads down there underneath of those. IV kits. I don't know the actual name of them because, again, it's not my cup of tea. And even though it's not my cup of tea, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have stuff available because there's other people around, right? It's probably a good idea to at least have some idea of who lives around you to know whether or not you may have a medical professional. There's a fairly good chance that you have a medical professional on your block. So it's a good idea to know who those medical professionals are. Because even though I could not put in an IV, nor would I even think about trying to put in an IV, there's other people that can. So I don't do needles. That right there, it would be enough for me because I do not do needles. But yes, I do have saline solution to go with that. So, and then, there's bigger elastic bandages in here and just more of those, the regular, well, I call them regular. I guess I shouldn't call them regular. What are they? 3-inch, I believe. So, plenty of those. There's a needle for the IV. So, again, even if you don't know how to use it, doesn't mean that you should skip having it because somebody around you may very well know how to use it. And you got things in here like airways, another set of trauma shears. There's actually some suture kits in here. Somebody needs stitched up. So, some hemostats in there and scissors and a little bitty ballpoint pen. A lot of this stuff was in this kit, but I have added a lot to this kit as well. There's bug bite stuff and antiseptic wipes and this is more quick clot that I have in here. Just general stuff that you would have in a medical kit. Really cheap, small rolls of medical tape. I do need to get better quality and bigger rolls of medical tape. That's one thing I need to add to here. I mean, the rest is just kind of various kind of stuff. So, without going all through it. No need in that. Just put this all back in. But medical, for obvious reasons, is extremely important. So, got more gauze pads in there. So, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So, again, not by any means am I finished on collecting medical supplies, and I don't have a lot of medical training, but I know that there are a lot of people that do, and as long as I have the supplies and the equipment, then the people that do know how to use it can do that very thing and hopefully save lives. So medical is absolutely huge. Next up, we're going to discuss repair. I have a very uncanny ability to repair things because I don't know what it is. I just can watch something and understand how it works, and that's on a lot of different things. So I've repaired everything. I can build computers. I can repair computers. Cars. I've done that a lot in my life. Hydraulics, pneumatics. I can repair that stuff. I mean, the list is pretty long of things I can repair. Covers a lot of mechanical and a fair amount into the electronics, and again, pneumatics, hydraulics, and just various things, right? I just have a weird ability to understand how something works just by observing it. So, and I mean, that's led even to, I have an understanding of how people work, as an example. It's just one of those things. I have that natural ability. This is my strongest skill set. So, repair, and we're going to include fabrication in this, because that will be important too, when and if things go south for any long period of time. I've got just various tools here. I will say this: anything that you're gathering together, if you're doing it for preparedness and you're doing it because you're concerned about some type of a long-term bad event, I'm going to say it's probably a good idea to buy quality equipment. Now, you're talking about somebody that's an absolute Black & Decker guy. I'll use Black & Decker, Ryobi. I'm not too discriminatory. However, it's a good idea to have good quality equipment if you can, because if we do experience something serious, it's not very likely you're going to be able to replace that. So I don't have a lot along the lines of power tools. I just don't. Would I like to have a lot more? Yeah. But it's one of those things to where we have put every extra penny that we have into preparedness for the last, since Jen and I have been together, so for 11 years. And it's a slow process when you don't have a lot of extra money to put into things. So, everything I've got is a culmination of what I could make, what I could earn to be able to purchase using those skill sets that I have in order to make it to where we have been, or where we've gotten to. So, very blessed for where we have gotten. I do need to get further, and it's all in the Father's will. If it's in His will, I'll be able to make enough money to be able to continue what we've been doing for the last 11 years. So, when I was looking for a drill and an impact, I was looking at getting something that was going to last me. And at the particular time, I don't know what the market and climate is right now, but at the very particular time that I was in the market to get a drill and an impact driver, there was a lot of bad thoughts about DeWalt at the time. So I'm like, there's issues being reported, I'm going to stay away from the DeWalt power tools. So there's a website called Woot, Whiskey Oscar Oscar Tango.com. And it's kind of it's an Amazon store kind of thing. And if you keep an eye out on Woot, and you can sign up for a newsletter and stuff as well, you can get some really bang up deals. And that's where I found these two. They were sold as a set. Porter cable. They're known for being quality tools, and they are the brushless variety. I think they're one of their early brushless line. And I don't use these a ton, but they have never failed me in any way whenever I have used them. So again, you want to make sure that you get quality, at least the best that you can. Definitely not a time to go Black & Decker and Ryobi. So in normal times, I have been taught the difference between trying to saw a straight line, say in a piece of plywood, which, by the way, when it comes to construction, when it comes to wood, that is not one of my strong points. In fact, I am pretty bad on that. I could build a home that would most likely be able to stand 100, 150 years, no problem, because I tend to over-engineer things. However, there's a lot of fine details about construction that I am clueless about. Proper ventilation, proper insulation so that you don't cause issues with the wood rotting and stuff like that because of moisture collecting inside the wall. Stuff like that, I'm clueless about, completely clueless about. I'm more towards the machining, welding, shop type of stuff, and I've never really worked with wood a whole lot. So this is just an El Cheapo that I bought off of Amazon. But one of the important things that you're going to want to be able to do involving this skill set, both with fabrication and repair, is be able to use many different types of fasteners. So I thought it was really important to have a functional rivet gun, and I went with a style like this just because I like this style with it straight on better than I do with the handle that goes off to the side. I like this design a little better. This has done me well. No complaints on it. It's just a cheapie, and I really liked it because the extra tips just screw right into the handles there, so you won't lose them as easily. So I just wanted to show that because that's one of those things that, you know, a lot of people might not think about when they're getting stuff for preparedness. They may not think of a rivet gun. So, cutting tools. It's extremely important that you take care of your cutting tools. I normally, at any given time, I carry 3 knives on me. One of them's on my Leatherman. This is my little dinner skinner from BC Blades. Rest in peace, Brad. And, you know, it's really important that you keep a good sharp edge on your cutting tools. Oops, that wasn't so much of a clean cut. And so that's important that you keep a sharp edge on your cutting tools. And that's exactly what I have in this case that I'm about to open up. This is a Work Sharp guided field sharpener. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I bought these, I was not good at sharpening knives. Not at all. And so that's why I bought this guided field sharpener, to kind of give me a little bit of a helping hand to learn how to sharpen a knife well. And at this point, I can sharpen them as sharp as a razor, and that's completely thanks to this here. So it's just again, a Work Sharp. I think they call it a guided field sharpener, and this thing right here, it's worth its weight in gold. In my bug out bag, I have they're the exact same size as a credit card, and they're, I think, diamond sharpeners or something like that, but they're just credit card sized pieces of steel. You know, of course, there's coarse, medium, and fine, and so that's in my bug out bag. And even on my keychain, I keep one of these so that I can really quickly put a new edge, or, you know, touch up an edge on a knife if I'm in the process of using it. So, and then of course, this here is what they call a Work Sharp, and it's not the expensive Kin Onion version, but this one does just as well. And I use this a little bit. The reason I don't like to use it a lot is because it gives your edge a convex, you know, your edge is convex, and I don't like that. I like a straight grind, you know. I think they call it a V grind. I don't like the convex, and I definitely don't like the hollow ground, which is kind of like concave. It's the opposite of convex. This kind of gives you a convex edge, and I'm not a big fan of that. Again, I like more of the, I think they call it a V. And then I've got, these are leather strap bands for the Work Sharp here. You know, I've got coarse, medium, and fine on those. And then there's buffing compound in there. Well, I should say honing compound, is that it? So, and I've got some extra belts here if I break the ones that I have. Of course, the manual, all that. And then here's another guide for it. So this has helped me, especially because I'm still not super wonderful at sharpening knives. So some of the larger knives and stuff, I will go ahead and use the Work Sharp on, because I am not a professional knife sharpener by any means. And then back here, I've just got a simple piece of leather so that I can strap my knives to give them that finishing touch on that edge. So I keep that in here as well. It's important to have a way to keep your cutting tools functioning as best as possible. So Work Sharp does make excellent products, I will say that. So again, not always when you're shopping for tools, not always do you have to go with the super expensive known name brands. Sometimes you can look at tools and you can get a good kind of idea if they're going to be a decent quality tool or not. And so Tack Life, never heard of them in my life. And I bought wrench set here. This is a standard set. And boy, let me tell you what. those are some nice, well-made, meaty wrenches. So I felt very confident. The reviews were very, very good on these. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to give that a shot. I am OCD, and you're going to see that real quick here about organization. I want my tools completely organized, and I want to be able to just take a glance, just a quick glance, to see if I'm missing anything. Because sometimes when you're working on stuff, you might put a wrench somewhere and not remember you put it there. And so it's just nice to be able to take a quick glance over at your tool roll and see whether or not everything's in there, or if you got any missing spaces. So that was a standard. And obviously, to go along with that, I've got the metric set. So to be honest, I don't open these up very often, and I'll show you why in a second. But I don't need to. You get this buckle here and off the table. And then once again, generic name tool here. But going along with my OCD-ness on organization, there's a plier set. Max Power is the brand there. And these as well have done a great job for me. The channel locks, they really do seem like a good pair of channel locks. You don't have problems with them shifting the jaws or anything like that. Same with their needle nose. No, it's not a real fine needle nose tip. It's a good meaty pair of needle nose pliers. And again, you don't have a problem with the jaws getting cocked to the side. A small little adjustable wrench. Small little vice grips. What do they call those? I can't remember. Vice Grips is a brand though. And then of course you got your, I think a lot of people call these like lineman pliers. And then your small pair of side cutters. I could use the other name for them if I wanted to offend people, but that's not my goal. So we'll leave the dikes out of it. Oh wait, I did say it. Oops, sorry. Sorry. Didn't mean to make that reference. And then, you know, of course, good quality bits are important. I wished I had more, you know, for backup, but as far as I know, DeWalt still makes good quality bits. Boy, I've seen some good deals here lately on the marketplace. A couple different sets I would have loved to have had, but I didn't have the money to buy them, so it is what it is. And same is true with my screwdriver set. The same amount of OCD level. Again, I can look right in my case and tell if I left a screwdriver somewhere. And then I've got this here, which will allow me to both magnetize and demagnetize the screwdriver tips as needed. And again, Mitaku. I've never Mitako. I don't know. Not to be confused with Taco Tuesday, but I haven't had any problems. I haven't rounded off any tips. I don't use them for chisels or nothing like that, or ice picks. I do my best to use my tools properly. I've not had any issue with any of the tips on any of these. So, highly impressed with this cheap screwdriver set. And the last thing I have on the table here is going to be my ratchet set. I did go ahead and go with DeWalt here because, you know, get it on there because that's one of the pictures I'm going to take. Okay, that's good. And then, you know, ratchet and socket set. And of course, up here you can see open and box in wrenches, which I typically use this case if I'm doing something quick. And I've got a small toolbox, a cheap dollar store toolbox. I've got a few of them. My electronics repair stuff is in one. I've got one that's got various screwdrivers and pliers and stuff like that. Stuff that I bought earlier on. I was telling you about how I'll just get stuff to make sure I've got that base covered, but then I'll go back and I'll try to get better. And that's exactly what I did. And one of those boxes has a set of metric and standard opening box and wrenches, and I will typically grab for that box. I mean, these, I don't know, they really do seem like they're quality made ratchets. They really do. They got a really nice fine tooth to them, and again, I've never had an issue. I kind of have a feeling that unless they got too crazy with cutting corners, I don't think DeWalt's probably gonna make too shabby of sockets here. And again, this is in all reality kind of a small set. I'm much more used to having a lot more as far as it, stuff like this is concerned. But thanks to my ex-wife, I lost oh gosh, several thousands of dollars worth of tools thanks to her. So I've had the last 11 years build everything back up, and I think I've done so far. I've done okay. I've tried to make good smart purchases, and all you can do is what you can do, right? So repair is huge, absolutely huge. I don't need to go into why repair is so huge. That should be common sense. But you got to make sure that you have the proper tools and equipment to be up for the job. Not just once or twice, but long term. So real quick, this video is already going to be way longer than what I really honestly intended it to be. But that's fine. It's just packed full of information that I hope people can glean from it. And there are so many important skill sets, and there are ones I'm going to mention, and there's even more, probably more than I mentioned, that I won't be mentioning. But I want to give you an idea of some others. Teachers, right? Just because the world goes crazy, things go dark, doesn't mean that children can stop learning. It's going to be just as important for those children to keep learning. In fact, even more important. So you want to make sure that you have a group of people together that will be able to keep teaching the children, as well as the older children. The adults that are involved in the other types of skill sets are going to need to take them under their wing and teach them those skills too, so that there's people to replace them when we all die. At some point we all die. It just happens. So teaching is a really important skill set. Oh goodness, there are so many important skill sets. I'm going to throw music, and you might be wondering, what you're talking about? It's the end of the earth, man, and you're talking about music. Why are you talking about music? Well, it's quite simple. In a major long-term event, there are going to be tons and tons of psychological issues, even by very strong people. And so it is imperative that you have moments to where people can unwind and they can relax. And an important thing to do is that once things start to settle, once the dust starts to settle a little bit, you set up, just events. Find somewhere, you set up events to where people can attend, and you play some music, maybe got some moonshine brewed up, and everybody just unwinds and relaxes. That is going to be so important. Along those lines, parents, make sure you keep back things like board games and stuff like that, non-battery operated games, so that the kids have something to be able to play, enjoy, and keep them busy. So again, there are so many skill sets that are going to be important. All of your construction trades are going to be important. Plumbers, electricians, we already went over the medical and stuff. There is so many different skill sets that are going to be useful. What's not going to be useful is people with degrees in political science, okay? Underwater basket weaving. Maybe the basket weaving part of that might work out as important, but the underwater part's probably not, unless you think you're going to be underwater basket weaving. There's the sad thing is about our colleges now is they offer so many degrees that really have no tangible place. They just don't. Like a lot of the political sciences and stuff like that. Just doesn't. I don't even understand all the business administration stuff and all that. If you talk to a lot of people that have went to college for business administration, you ask them if they've used that college for business administration, they'll tell you no. And on the flip side of that, just because you went to college for business administration, it doesn't mean you know how a particular company wants you to operate. You know, everything you learned in your schooling may not even apply to the company that you wind up working for. And so it honestly, it's really kind of a joke. A lot of it is. Your trades, your skilled trades are going to be what's very valuable in a long-term major event. So just kind of think about it. Think about it. You know, think about what skill you have. And if you've got something that you think in that situation might be an asset, then that's awesome. If you're sitting there right now and you took classes on political science and underwater basket weaving and wonder, well, what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to start learning skills, tangible skills that will be actually useful for other individuals and yourself in case of a major event, right? And if you reach out to individuals that know those skills, they just might be willing to help you learn them. I am absolutely willing to help people learn. You want to learn how to work on a car, you want to learn how to work on anything. As long as I know how to learn, or no, as long as I know how to learn, as long as I know how to do it, I will be more pleased than you could ever imagine to pass these skills on. One of the biggest regrets I have of not having my children in my life is not being able to pass on some of the most valuable skills that they could have. So that is what it is. Unfortunately, learning how to keep your hand out is not a plausible skill. It's just not a plausible skill. And unfortunately, well, that's kind of where they've been led. So it's unfortunate, but I'm not rich enough to be able to fix that problem. So anyway, just like I said, sit down, take some good personal stock, do some soul searching. If you've got some good skills to contribute, then maybe make sure that those skills are honed and sharpened up. And if you don't have skills that would be relatable to a major long-term event, then find some. Find something that you're interested in, and just go at it. Go at it. YouTube, believe it or not, is an absolutely incredible resource for information. I couldn't begin to tell you how much I've learned from YouTube. When I do image editing, when I do video editing, when I do anything like that, those are all skills that I learned from YouTube. I didn't go to any college for that. I didn't have somebody sit down and show me. I went to work myself with my computer, with Google search engine, with YouTube, and I learned those skills. I'm self-taught on a lot of my skills. So you can do it if you're motivated and if you're determined. You can do it without a doubt. So today's a really good day to do some soul searching. Think about what skills you may have to offer and maybe learn some new ones to add to them. So there you go. That's the important skill sets video. Again, there are a gazillion skill sets that I never even mentioned that are very important as well. But there was a lot of little intricacies on the ones that I did mention that I thought was important to point out. So I hope you all have a blessed and wonderful day. As always, shalom.